into the corrupted woods. The howl echoed through Silverthorn Forest, reverberating off ancient trunks and causing the very air to shiver. Edrick's hand moved instinctively to his sword hilt as he guided Thunder deeper into the shadowed woods. Behind him, Rose and Shamaz rode close, while Alluria had already dismounted, moving on foot with the predatory grace that made her invaluable in dangerous terrain. The forest closed around them like a living thing. Massive oaks and elms, their bark blackened with age and corruption, towered overhead. Their branches intertwined so thickly that only scattered fragments of gray daylight penetrated the canopy. The path, if it could still be called that, was barely visible beneath centuries of accumulated leaves and the creeping moss that seemed to pulse with its own sickly luminescence. "Stay close," Edrick commanded, his voice low. The amulet in his saddlebag had grown so hot he could feel its warmth through the leather. Its whispers had become a constant drone, words in the old tongue bleeding together into an ominous rhythm. "The corruption is stronger here than the reports suggested," Shamaz observed, his weathered face grim. He'd pulled out one of the blessed amulets from his supplies, small tokens of silver etched with protective symbols. The metal had begun to glow with a faint orange light, growing warmer with each step forward. "We're near a concentration of the ancient evil's influence." Rose guided her chestnut courser alongside Edrick's destrier. Her longsword was already drawn, held ready across her saddle. "I don't like this. Too quiet. Even corrupted forests should have some noise. Birds fleeing, insects, something." She was right. The silence was absolute, oppressive. It pressed against Edrick's ears like water, broken only by the soft footfalls of their horses and the occasional crack of a branch somewhere in the depths. The temperature had dropped until he could see his breath misting before his face, despite it being mid-morning in late spring. Movement. Alluria's voice came from ahead, barely louder than a whisper. She'd stopped at the edge of the path, crouched low with one hand pressed against the corrupted earth. 3. No, 4 creatures, circling us, staying just out of sight. Edrick dismounted smoothly, drawing his sword. The blade sang as it left the scabbard, the sound unnaturally loud in the dead forest. "The wolves from the forest edge?" "Wolves don't move like this." Alluria stood, her twin daggers appearing in her hands as if summoned. The purple luminescence of the enchanted blades cast eerie shadows across the twisted trees. "These things are hunting, testing us. They're intelligent." A branch snapped to their left, then another to the right. The companions formed a defensive circle, their horses at the center. Shamaz had dismounted as well, one hand gripping his walking staff, which Edrick knew concealed a blade, while the other held a small vial of blessed water. "Show yourselves!" Rose's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "We know you're there!" For a moment, nothing. Then the shadows themselves seemed to move, detaching from the trees and resolving into shapes that made Edrick's stomach turn. 4 creatures emerged from the darkness. They had once been deer. That much was clear from their basic forms, but the corruption had twisted them into nightmares. Their legs bent at wrong angles, joints reversed so they moved with a disturbing, insectile gait. Bark-like growths erupted from their flesh, forming jagged plates across their bodies. But it was their eyes that truly horrified. Glowing pools of sickly green light that held an intelligence no animal should possess. The largest stepped forward, its antlers overgrown and warped into a crown of twisted bone. When it opened its mouth, the sound that emerged was not a deer's call, but something closer to human speech, distorted and wrong. "Turn! Back!" The words were barely recognizable, dragged out and layered with multiple voices. "The forest hungers." "Mother of mercy," Shamaz breathed. "They can speak. The corruption has advanced far beyond what I feared." Edrick stepped forward, sword raised. "We cannot turn back. The path forward is the only way to stop this from spreading further." The lead creature's head tilted at an unnatural angle, studying him. "King, Edrick, the old blood, the cycle." "News? You?" Ice ran down Edrick's spine. How did this thing know his name? And what did it mean by old blood? "Enough talk," Rose snapped, raising her war axe. "These things are corrupted beyond saving. We put them down." The creatures moved as one. The lid deer thing charged, its reversed legs propelling it forward with shocking speed. Edrick met its charge, his sword sweeping up to catch the creature's antlers. The impact jarred his arms, far stronger than any natural deer could manage. The corruption had made it powerful. To his right, Rose engaged two of the creatures simultaneously. Her longsword flashed in a defensive arc, forcing one back, while her axe caught the second in its shoulder. The blade bit deep, and black ichor sprayed across the forest floor. Where the liquid touched the earth, the moss withered and died. "Don't let their blood touch you," Shamaz called out, backing toward the horses. The corruption spreads through contact. Aluria danced between the shadows, her enchanted daggers leaving trails of purple light. She moved like smoke, impossible to pin down, striking at the fourth creature's legs and joints. Each cut caused the beast to stumble, its reversed anatomy working against it. Edrick pressed his advantage against the lead creature, driving it back with a series of powerful strikes. But the thing was learning, adapting. It dodged his next swing with unnatural grace, then lunged forward. Its antlers caught his shoulder plate, the impact spinning him around. Only his armor saved him from being gored. He rolled with the momentum, coming up in a crouch. The creature was already charging again. This time, Edrick waited until the last moment, then pivoted aside and brought his sword down in a two-handed strike. The blade severed the thing's front leg at the joint. It collapsed, screaming, that horrible multi-voice sound that was almost human. Edrick didn't hesitate. He brought his sword down again, this time through the creature's neck. The head rolled away, green light fading from its eyes. But even as it died, it whispered, "The cycle continues. You cannot stop what has already begun." Rose had dispatched one of her opponents, her blade dripping with black ichor. The second creature circled her warily, limping from a deep cut in its flank. She feinted left, then struck right, her axe catching the thing in the skull. It dropped instantly. Aluria's target was the last standing. The rogue had methodically destroyed its mobility, cutting tendons and joints until it could barely move. Now she stood before it, daggers crossed. "Wait," Shamaz called out. He approached the fallen creature carefully, his blessed amulet held out before him. The silver glowed brighter as he drew near. "This one is less corrupted than the others. Perhaps it can tell us more." The deer thing's eyes flickered between green and natural brown, as if two wills fought for control. When it spoke, its voice was clearer, more recognizably animal in its terror. "Please kill me. The darkness, it hurts. Can't think, can't remember what's." Edric's chest tightened. Beneath the corruption, beneath the twisted flesh and reversed joints, this had been a living creature. The ancient evil hadn't just killed, it had enslaved, transforming its victims into weapons. "The Stronghold," Edrick said to Aluria. "How much farther?" "Half a day's travel if we move fast and don't encounter more resistance." She looked at the dying creature with something approaching pity. "But there will be more. Many more. The corruption spreads in rings around the seal sites. We're entering the outer ring now." Shamaz knelt beside the creature, placing one weathered hand on its twisted skull. He began to chant in a language Edrick didn't recognize. Not the old tongue, but something from Shamaz's homeland of Nazwaiwana. The words were soft, musical, and as he spoke, the creature's trembling eased. "Go in peace," Shamaz murmured. "Return to the earth. Let the darkness have no more hold on you." The creature's eyes cleared completely for just a moment, returning to natural brown. It made a sound that might have been gratitude. Then Aluria's blade flashed once, quick and merciful, and it was over. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of what they'd witnessed settling over them. These weren't mindless monsters. They were victims, their very souls trapped in corrupted flesh. "We burn the bodies," Rose said quietly. "We don't leave them for the forest to claim." It took an hour to build a proper pyre and burn the four creatures. Shamaz spoke prayers over the flames, blessing the smoke as it rose toward the tangled canopy. Edrick watched the fire consume the twisted forms, his jaw set. This was what awaited Stormmoor if they failed. Not just death, but transformation, corruption, an existence worse than any death. When the flames had died to embers, they mounted again and pressed deeper into the forest. The amulet in Edrick's saddlebag pulsed faster now, its whispers rising to an urgent chant. They were getting closer to something. Whether the Stronghold or another seal site, Edrick couldn't tell. The path grew narrower, forcing them to ride single file. Ancient trees pressed close on either side, their bark covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly with the same sickly green light as the corrupted creature's eyes. Shamaz studied the markings as they passed. "These aren't natural," he said. "Someone, or something, carved these. Recently." "A warning?" Rose asked. "Or a summons?" Shamaz's expression was grim. The symbols speak of gathering, of awakening, of servants preparing the way for their master's return. Edrick's hand tightened on his reins. "Then we're not just fighting corruption. There are active agents working to free the ancient evil." "Cultists," Illyria confirmed. "My people have tracked them for years, but they've always been small groups, scattered and disorganized. If they're marking the forest, they're growing bolder, stronger." A sound echoed through the trees ahead, not the howl they'd heard earlier, but something worse. Chanting. Human voices raised in unison, speaking words in the old tongue that made Edrick's teeth ache. "The stronghold is north," Illyria said urgently, "but those voices are coming from the east. There's something else here, something we weren't expecting." Edrick made his decision instantly. "We investigate. If there are cultists this deep in the forest, they're either guarding something important or performing a ritual. Either way, we can't ignore them." "Agreed," Rose said, drawing her sword again. "But we go quietly, no sense announcing ourselves." They dismounted and secured the horses to a massive oak, then proceeded on foot. Illyria took point, her dark clothing blending with the shadows. Shamaz moved with surprising quiet for a man of his years, his staff held ready. Rose and Edrick brought up the rear, weapons drawn. The chanting grew louder as they crept forward. Through the trees ahead, Edrick could see firelight flickering. They dropped low, crawling the last 20 yards until they could peer through the undergrowth into a clearing. What he saw made his blood run cold. 12 figures in dark robes stood in a circle around a stone altar that jutted from the forest floor like a broken tooth. The altar was covered in the same symbols they'd seen on the trees, but these glowed brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the chanting. And bound to the altar, struggling against iron chains, was a young woman, barely more than a girl, her eyes wide with terror. "Sacrifice," Shamaz breathed, horror in his voice. "They're going to sacrifice her to feed the corruption." But it was what lay beyond the altar that truly terrified Edrick. The ground there had split open, revealing a chasm that descended into absolute darkness. And from that darkness, something was rising. Not emerging fully, not yet, but testing the boundaries of its prison. A massive shape, indistinct but wrong in every way that mattered. Even looking at it made Edrick's eyes water and his mind rebel. The lead cultist raised his arms, his voice rising above the others. "Great One, ancient hunger, we offer you this vessel. Accept our gift and grant us your blessing. The seals weaken, the cycle turns. Soon you shall walk free." The thing in the chasm pulsed, and the girl on the altar screamed. Edrick surged to his feet, all pretense of stealth abandoned. "Now!" The 4 companions burst from the undergrowth like avenging spirits. Edrick's sword took the nearest cultist in the chest before the man could even turn. Rose's axe split another's skull. Illyria's daggers flashed, dropping 2 more in quick succession. But the remaining cultists didn't flee. Their eyes glowed with the same sickly green light as the corrupted creatures. They drew weapons, crude iron blades that wept black ichor, and attacked with inhuman strength. The battle was brief but brutal. These weren't ordinary men anymore. The corruption had claimed them, turning them into something between human and monster. They felt no pain, no fear, fighting with savage intensity until they were cut down. Shamaz reached the altar first, his hands already working at the girl's chains. "Hold them off! I need time." Edrick positioned himself between Shamaz and the remaining cultists, his sword a blur of motion. Beside him, Rose fought with controlled fury, every strike precise and deadly. Illyria moved through the chaos like a ghost, her daggers finding throats and hearts with unerring accuracy. The lead cultist was the last standing. He backed toward the chasm, laughing even as blood poured from a dozen wounds. "Too late! Too late! The offering is made. The hunger is awakened. Your bloodline cannot stop what your bloodline began." He threw himself backward into the chasm, his laughter echoing as he fell into the darkness. The ground shook. The thing in the depths surged upward, and for one terrible moment, Edrick saw it clearly. A mass of writhing shadows and grasping limbs, faces twisted in eternal agony, pressing against the darkness as if trying to break through a membrane. Then the chasm snapped shut with a sound like breaking bones, and the thing was gone. But the altar continued to pulse. The symbols glowed brighter, and the girl, now freed from her chains, convulsed on the stone, her eyes rolling back. "Shamaz!" Edrick shouted. The healer was already moving, pulling vials from his pack. He forced one between the girl's lips, speaking rapid prayers. "The corruption is in her blood. The ritual was interrupted, but not stopped. I can slow it, but—" The girl's eyes snapped open, glowing green. She sat up with unnatural speed and grabbed Shamaz's wrist. When she spoke, her voice was layered with that same multi-toned quality the corrupted deer had possessed. "The king? With the old blood. The cycle knows you. Your ancestors sealed us. You will free us. It is written. It is inevitable. The stronghold holds the key to your damnation." Then her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed, unconscious. Shamaz checked her pulse, his face pale. "She lives. The corruption hasn't fully taken her, but she's marked now, connected to it." Edrick stared at the unconscious girl, his mind racing. The cultist's final words echoed in his thoughts. "Your bloodline cannot stop what your bloodline began." What did that mean? What had his ancestors done? Alluria appeared at his shoulder, her expression grave. "The stronghold isn't far now, perhaps an hour's walk. But Edrick, if what that thing said is true, if your bloodline is connected to the ancient evil somehow—" "Then we need answers," Edrick finished. "And we need them now." Rose wiped her blade clean, her jaw set. "Whatever's waiting for us at that stronghold, we face it together, like always." Shamaz gently lifted the unconscious girl. "We take her with us. If there's any hope of saving her, it lies with Alluria's people and their ancient knowledge." They gathered their weapons and made their way back to the horses. The forest seemed darker now, more hostile. The shadows pressed closer, and Edrick could feel eyes watching from the depths. The amulet in his saddlebag burned hot enough to scorch leather, its whispers a constant scream in the old tongue. As they mounted and turned north toward the stronghold, Edrick's mind churned with questions. What was his bloodline's connection to the ancient evil? Why had his ancestors sealed rather than destroyed it? And what key did the stronghold hold? The key to salvation or damnation? The path ahead wound deeper into the corrupted heart of Silverthorn Forest. And somewhere in that darkness, in the hidden stronghold of Alluria's people, the truth waited. A truth that would either save the kingdom of Stormmoor or doom it forever.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.